Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Russ Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. The Indiana Hoosiers basketball season is looking worse and worse, and now talks are heating up. That Indiana head coach, Mike Woodson, should be fired. The national media is talking about it. Of course, Indiana fans are talking about it. I'm going to go over how bad this season has been for Indiana and whether I believe Mike Woodson should be fired after this season or whether Indiana needs to give him another year. Now, Indiana has been struggling all season long. I actually made a video talking about what was wrong with Indiana basketball and whether Woodson was still the guy last month after their loss to Illinois, but boy, have things gotten a whole lot worse. In that video, I said if Mike Woodson can just get Indiana at least to an NIT or maybe borderline NCAA tournament this season, we know the flaws that this team has, but as long as things just don't end too badly, Mike Woodson should be fine. But the problem for Mike Woodson is ever since that, things have gotten a whole lot worse for Indiana basketball. This team is playing abysmal basketball, and the problem is the team has too much talent to be poor, but the roster construction is an issue. And I think that that's where a lot of people are getting frustrated with Mike Woodson because he keeps saying the same things. I'm going to get them over the hump. Even somebody memed it on Twitter. Mike Woodson, you need to resign ASAP. You don't know how to get them over the hump because that's all he keeps saying over and over again. And that's a big problem when your coach goes up to the press conference game in and game out and he just continues to say, we got to do better. We got to get them over the hump. It's kind of like Archie Miller when he would say every press conference, I don't know what's going on. Our team does so well in practice, but in the game, they're struggling. When you just continue to say things like that, that's going to irritate Indiana fans because they want the coach to have answers. And Mike Woodson just doesn't have the answers. And a big issue for me with Mike Woodson's coaching philosophy at Indiana is that he is coaching an NBA style with college players. Yes, Indiana's got Malik Reneau, Khalil Ware, and Mackenzie Mbako, three guys that were former five-star recruits, but it still doesn't matter. Those guys are not ready for NBA concepts. You got Trey Galloway at the top of the key dribbling around. He's got nowhere to throw the ball to half the time. He can't beat a man off the dribble 9 out of 10 times because he's got some explosiveness, but he's not a super athletic guy. And Xavier Johnson's injury, that is in Mike Woodson's defense. If you want to say Mike Woodson should not be fired, then that is a big reason in defense of Mike Woodson. Xavier Johnson's injury, it does suck for Mike Woodson, but still overall, even if Indiana had Xavier Johnson, there's no guarantee that this would have been a tournament team. They would have been much better than the 14-13 that they currently are right now this season, and they're 6-10 in the Big Ten. It hasn't updated on Wikipedia yet, but now Mike Woodson's record is 58-39, and he's 27-29 in the Big Ten. That's not a great record. He has the 2 NCAA tournament seasons before this year that are helping him out, but a big reason why Mike Woodson had so much success is because of the fact that he had Trace Jackson Davis. Xavier Johnson was still the point guard. He was very flawed, but he helped Indiana, along with Parker Stewart and Trey Galloway in the backcourt, to be able to make the NCAA tournament that first season with Trace Jackson Davis. And in the second year, even though Xavier Johnson got hurt, Jalen Hood-Schifino, he was an NBA guard. And him along with Trace Jackson Davis, Race Thompson in the front court, they had a solid team. But still, Indiana wasn't a team that was competing for a national championship by no means. They were not able to get all the way back to national relevancy like Mike Woodson said when he took the job at Indiana. He said he was going to bring Indiana back to national relevance and they were going to compete for banners. And that just hasn't occurred. And one thing that Mike Woodson said that really bothered me during those first 2 seasons as the head coach of Indiana when he had those teams is when Mike Woodson said that he did not have to get Miller Kopp shots. How in the world do you tell the media that you're not responsible for getting a guy open shot, especially when Miller Kopp is a player that can't set himself up? This isn't a Stephon Curry type of deal. This isn't a Jason Tatum type of deal. An NBA player just dribbling around and chunking up a three if he feels hot at that given time in a game and his team needs a three. No, this is not how it works in college basketball, especially when Indiana has a guy like Miller Kopp that's a catch and shoot guy. You have to set him up. You got to set ball screens. You got to do everything you possibly can to get a guy shots. And that's why Indiana is a terrible three-point shooting team, because for one thing, Mike Woodson hasn't recruited shooters, which is highly ironic when you look at the fact that he's an NBA coach. You would think that he would be able to bring in guards that would be able to shoot the basketball at a high level with his NBA background. You would think guards would just want to play for an NBA coach. You look at other coaches coaches that have had experience in the NBA, even if it was brief, like Rick Pitino or John Calipari or Eric Musselman. All those guys usually can recruit guards. That has not been the case with Mike Woodson, and maybe that's because of Trace Jackson Davis and the fact how profound Indiana was with him in the front court, that's why he's able to get guys like Khalil Ware and Malik Renew to commit to Indiana, because of the fact that Indiana has been attracting post players lately. But still, it doesn't matter. I believe that the reason guards and forwards that can shoot don't want to go to Indiana is because Mike Woodson's statement saying that he doesn't have to get guys open shots, that prevents players from wanting to go there, because you need to be able to help collegiate players, unless you're a guy like Yogi Ferrell that Indiana had in the past that can create his own shot. The other problem for Mike Woodson is that he also doesn't set ball screens very often. Indiana will be competitive in a game, and like I said earlier, have Trey Galloway just dribbling around at the top of the key, and then when Indiana's down by 15, that's when they're going to decide to go out there, start setting ball screens, and that makes the offense move a lot better when you can pick and pop with a Khalil Ware, get him going to the basket with a pick and roll and have him lay it in, or pick and pop for a three because he can knock it down. And that's another thing. You've got a 7-footer that can shoot threes, but yet Indiana barely ever has him shoot threes. And then you got Malik Renew who can shoot them as well. But Mike Woodson doesn't set these guys up. That's all on Mike Woodson. And that's a big reason why Mike Woodson is on the hot seat right now, with a lot of Indiana fans saying he should be fired, and even the national media, because these are issues that Mike Woodson is not fixing. Plus, Mike Woodson did a terrible job recruiting in the backcourt. He left an open scholarship that he really needed to get another guard. Again, Mike Woodson can't help the injuries to Xavier Johnson, even Ja'Kai Newton, who can't play. But still, this team should have been a lot better than it is right now. 14-13, 6-10 in the Big Ten. This is Indiana. It feels like Groundhog Day all over again for the Hoosiers. They just continue to struggle, whether it's Tom Crean or Archie Miller or Kelvin Sampson, him getting fired after having the allegations. Tom Crean had his moments, but it was up and down. But as you can see, Indiana's records with the last three coaches, Tom Crean had a 55% winning percentage, which he actually was better than that considering he took over the program after the Kelvin Sampson fallout, and he had some bad years in those first three seasons when he barely had any scholarship players. So Tom Crean actually, if you take those 3 seasons out, had an over 60% winning percentage. He won 2 Big Ten titles, but still that wasn't enough. Archie Miller got 4 seasons, only had a 53% winning percentage, no Big Ten titles, no NCAA tournament appearances, even though they would have made it in 2020, but the pandemic happened. But Mike Woodson now trending under 60%. His Big Ten winning percentage is under 50%. Mike Woodson is definitely in trouble right now. But again, should he be fired? I do believe overall that if you look at what Indiana has done, they gave Mike Davis 6 seasons. They gave Tom Crean 9 seasons. They even gave Archie Miller 4 seasons. I believe Mike Woodson should get another year as the head coach of Indiana basketball based off of that. But the issue is this is 2024. These new teams are coming into the Big Ten, UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon. And also the fact with NIL changing rapidly, you see the NCAA ruling the other day. NIL is basically free reign. And if you want to have great NIL, you got to have the boosters on your side, and you got to have the fan support on your side. Indiana basketball is a massive fan base, but they are very angry right now. And they're not going to be donating to NIL when you got responses like this on Twitter saying, I might officially be on the get rid of Mike Woodson train. These Indiana fans are not going to be contributing to the Indiana basketball team with NIL if they are apathetic to the team, if they don't believe that this team can win. And that's a big issue with the Indiana fan base. Once you lose the fan base and they turn against you like they did with Tom Crean and like they did with Archie Miller, you can't get them back. The only thing that Mike Woodson has going for him is that he was an Indiana legend, one of the best basketball players that they ever had back in the 1970s, but he's losing his goodwill fast. And the way he has handled this team this season has not been great with his play calling and a lot of other things, even in his post-game press conferences, like this meme here saying Mike Woodson to his players after a loss, throwing them under the bus. That's been a big issue with Mike Woodson as well. He has blamed his players a lot for the losses this season. And I know technically you could say it's the players' fault, but Mike Woodson's not putting them in the best position to win. And he is now changing his tune, saying that it's his own fault. Mike Woodson said in his recent post-game press conference after the Penn State loss that it is his own fault and that he is holding himself accountable, which is a good sign, even if he's only saying it because he knows that he has to say it to look a little bit better. But regardless, Mike Woodson's losing his goodwill fast. He is a guy that a lot of people were mixed on when Indiana decided to hire him, but a lot of people were starting to believe in him after the first 2 seasons and then making the NCAA tournament. But I believe Trace Jackson Davis masked a lot of problems that this current team is having right now with the amount of dominance he had in behind the post, being able to block shots. Khalil Ware, he's good at blocking balls too. But Indiana's defense is a problem as well, with the fact that Mike Woodson always has his players switching, and sometimes switching leads to wide open threes if guys have miscommunication or guys can just blow by and lay it in if the center can't rotate over enough to block the shot. Trace Jackson Davis was just so elite at that he made Indiana just look so much better on offense and on defense, and it's making Mike Woodson not look all that great of a college basketball coach right now when he can't figure these things out. I think Indiana should give Mike Woodson one more year because he does have Liam McNeely in the 2024 class, and he has recruited well as the Indiana head coach, bringing a lot of guys in, but he's bringing the wrong type of players in. He's got to bring some guards in next season. If he gets another season at Indiana, there's a really good chance he gets fired after this year. But I would give Mike Woodson one more season. But how poorly this season has gone for Indiana. And I'm not one of those guys that believes in teams pulling the trigger quickly and firing a coach prematurely because of the fact that they're not doing all that good and not even giving them a chance to turn it around. But Indiana definitely has an argument here because this team has been poor for Indiana this season. And even though there have been a couple injuries, Mike Woodson's flaws as a college basketball coach have severely limited this team's ability to be good this season. And that's why Indiana fans and the national media think Mike Woodson should be fired after this season, even though I do think they should at least give him one more year. But if they're still struggling after that, then Mike Woodson definitely needs to move on as the head coach of Indiana. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Whether you think that Indiana needs to pull the trigger and fire Mike Woodson after this season of Indiana playing poor basketball, or whether you think that he does deserve one more year to try to turn this around in the transfer portal and see if he can make Indiana a better basketball team next season. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.